Good day, and thank you for joining me as we take a deeper dive, taking a look at the Diseases and Conditions title available through Primal Pictures. For those of you who aren't familiar with diseases and conditions, this title focuses on teaching you the associated anatomical changes and pathophysiology in relation to over 100 different common diseases and conditions. If you have made use of the anatomy and physiology title before, the diseases and conditions title functions very similarly in terms of how to navigate those different options. As mentioned before, the diseases and conditions title functions very similarly to that of the anatomy and physiology title. But just to orientate ourselves a bit, what we'll do is take a look at some of those different menu options and then discuss how this information is taught. Now, over on the far left, you'll have those different menu options along with the associated specialities. Over in the center, this is where you'll have your interactive viewing pane, which houses content, in this case in the form of an explanatory movie, PDF, or label diagrams. And over on the far right, in this case, because we selected cardiology, will then be presented with a whole host of range for different diseases and conditions. For today, we'll be taking a look at a myocardial infarction as an example. If I go ahead and just minimize that, let's say we wanted to search for any individual piece of content across any of those different diseases and conditions. We can then quickly hop over to that little search bar and search for any appropriate piece of content. What we'll first be greeted with is an explanatory movie about what a myocardial infarction is. And we then also have the associated explanatory text, which provides us with some insight and overview about the incidence of this condition, as well as a brief summary about its effect on the heart. Now, if we go ahead and scroll down, we then have some annotated or labeled diagrams. And for that first diagram, we'll take a look at the microanatomy of the human heart, specifically for the coronary arteries. And in this case, we're provided with some information about the overall function as well as structure for the coronary arteries in terms of its delivery of oxygen and nutrients to the myocardium. What you'll then be greeted with is some information about the development of a myocardial infarction, otherwise simply known as a heart attack. With this next label diagram, what we'll see is the gradual progression of the narrowing of the lumen and the formation of a atherosclerotic plaque, or in this case arterial thrombus. Now, with the associated explanatory text, we're then able to appreciate the pathophysiology of this condition in terms of the disease progression timeline from healthy all the way down to diseased tissue in terms of narrowing of the coronary artery, resulting in an increase in blood pressure, the effects of thrombus formation, and how that will affect the overall functioning of the cardiac tissue in terms of a reduced blood flow, otherwise known as ischemia, and the subsequent loss, or in this case decreased perfusion of oxygen and nutrient supply to the heart, resulting in hypoxia. And that then unfortunately results in irreversible damage to the myocardium or cardiac tissue, otherwise known as necrosis. And because of this, this ultimately results in what we know as a myocardial infarction or heart attack. With the next section, you're then greeted with those associated anatomical consequences as a result of a myocardial infarction due to the buildup of that atherosclerotic plaque. For nerve stimulation, as well as tissue necrosis, adrenaline release, and hypoxia of the brain, for each of those different anatomical consequences, you're greeted with the associated structures that have been affected, the various symptoms or changes that will occur, as well as a little bit of information about the appropriate treatment or intervention measures that will be most appropriate in order to prevent permanent damage to this particular organ. Now, towards the end, you'll get 3 different windows. These are downloadable PDFs ranging from both causes, symptoms, and treatment. And these have been geared more towards the lines of patient education, and also are a nice little mix thrown in for students to use as an offline resource for study material. Now towards the end, you're then provided with a summary about those different anatomical changes, as well as the overall effect on the physiology. And towards the end, you'll get a full comprehensive downloadable PDF encompassing both the incidence, treatment, anatomical consequences, symptoms, and more. Now, I hope that gave you a good overview about how the diseases and conditions title marries together the differences between healthy versus diseased tissue, and also teaches you about the associated anatomical consequences and some of the subsequent symptoms and treatments. I hope you enjoyed this little crash course about how to navigate the diseases and conditions title through Primal Pictures, and I hope that you enjoy your time using Primal Pictures as you make learning come alive.